Welcome, fellow alcohol inkers. My name is Teri Jones, and I'm going to show you how to paint this penguin couple on Duralar paper. As you can see, I have sketched the penguin and its little child on a piece of paper with just a line drawing. And now I put a piece of Duralar, the matte Duralar, on top of it. And I'm going to start with using some mushroom and some slate to start painting the fur in on the little dude. Fur is a little difficult. I'm going to combine the colors together using a small brush, and I'm going to concentrate on making little tiny strokes that will allow it to start looking as if it is fur. So I've combined the mushroom and the slate, and here I'm basically just using some alcohol to soften everything and start to get it to work. I'll keep on exploring this. I'll use some very this is Cool Perry, and I'm going to use Cool Perry in the back to make it that very soft shadows. I don't really want them to be white, so I added some Cool Perry, and now again I'm blending everything again with a slightly damp brush. The trick is to make sure there's not too much alcohol or alcohol inks in the brush when you're working with it. And the wonderful thing about Duralar is, as you can see, I went outside my lines a little bit, but it isn't a problem to kind of fix it. I put a little tiny bit of the periwinkle in the face of the little penguin, and now I'm going to keep on working at getting it to work the way I want. So when I work with alcohol inks, I put stuff down and then I pull it off. I have dampened, not soaked, but just dampened this Q-tip in a little bit of alcohol. And so what I'm working with doing is making very small little strokes to make it look a lot like it is fur. I've got another brush here, and now I'm going to go back and I'm going to darken some areas. I'm going to switch my color a little bit into from the mushroom, and I went back to the slate. So when I work on stuff like this, I just work back and forth until it starts looking like I want it to look. It's got some little feet in here, so I put some of its little feet in, and I'm just working, as I said, back and forth, back and forth. This is a very intuitive process. It's not something that you're not going to follow my every stroke. You're going to use the techniques I'm using, which is in some ways almost dry brush in alcohol ink. And you're going to then manage to kind of just dance with the paints on the paper. Now, at this point, I am using some black paint. And one of the things you have to watch out for when you get, oops, no, now I'm deciding I'm going to go with the yellow paint. Okay, so I am going to start painting the belly of the father here. So I used just a little tiny bit of yellow, and that is, originally I tried dandelion for the first one, and I realized that it was way too sharp or something. So this is sunshine yellow with a little bit of blending solution in it to kind of get it to thin out just a little bit. It's not like it's directly from the bottle. So I filled in the area with the sunshine yellow, and then I will end up adding some more colors and working. I decided that it would be a really good idea to use Ember. The first time I did this, well, this is the second time I've done this painting. So the first time I did it, I tried Valencia, and it wasn't quite as brilliant as I had hoped for. So following the painting that I have here, and I don't follow it exactly. I use it as a guide. I'm putting in the Ember color, and then I'm combining it with a little bit of the Sunshine Yellow and coming up with my own color here. And again, this is a playing back and forth until I get the color that I'm really looking for. There's a lot of color in the shadows in this guy. He doesn't have really gray shadows. He more has very colorful shadows. So I'm trying to do the shadows under his chin with some color, and working to try to see how well I can get it done. So I also noticed that there's a bit of blue toward the back in the shadows. So I will use some stonewashed, and I'm going to just put a little bit of blue in to try to get those shadows working on the body of the penguin here. So again, working back and forth, there's a big shadow under its beak, and there's going to be some shadows on, here we go, the big shadow under the beak, and then there's the shadow of the little guy where the sun's hitting the little penguin and it's putting a shadow on Dad. So here I am again, just working to try to get everything to work together. And sometimes I don't use exactly the same colors. A lot of times I just keep on trying to figure out what the painting needs next. So working still with the blue and working with getting some shape to the little critter. I just keep on putting more ember, trying to reinforce the ember that there's a little tiny red. If you look at the reference photo, there's a tiny slice of red in its beak or whatever it is. So the next big thing that I need to do is I need to do the black. And if I use the black directly out of the bottle, it'll move too much and it won't be black enough. And so I tried a trick of putting a little bit of blending solution in the black, pulling it off to the palette itself, and working with the blending solution to try to get it to thicken up and be more black. And that worked a little better, but it's still, I have to really concentrate on making sure that the black is not going to spread too far. Now, on the outside of the penguin, it's fine because I can clean that up. This is Duralar, it'll clean up to white. So that it's not a problem on the outside. It's just that if I've already got my shadows on the inside done, I might not want to end up with too much black on the inside. I ending up with too much black anyway, and you'll see how I fix it, because that's the other beauty of Duralar, is it's easily fixed. So here I am trying to get the same feeling and the same density of the very dark black on the penguin that is in the picture. So there's where I went a little bit too far over. But I really decided it was kind of okay, because if I didn't pull it all off, it made a really nice shadow. So I liked it. Trying to take out, I lost my little hint of white that's in there, so I'm just trying to take out a little hint of, there's a little edge of light there that separates his wing from, I guess, his back. Or I guess they're called wings. I don't know what they're called on these dudes. Reinforcing the shadows again with darker colors. I went back to the stonewashed and reinforced them with darker colors. And now I'm going to reinforce more color. I realized that there's a lot of warm color in that top of the shadow. So I wanted to kind of get that working. So I'm just kind of exploring, trying to get these colors to work how I want them to work. And I may end up using a slightly different color that's in the picture, but that's okay. The little dude has the only really dark area of him is his little head. So I'm going to work on getting that really nice and dark. And he's also got dark feet, but I like his head there and his little eye. So I just love the way this guy has his wings out saying, "Daddy, I'm going to fly." So I thought that I was out of my line a little bit, so I cleaned it up, and then I realized, oops, really, I'm not out of my line. So I had to go back in and put in a little more in places. But it's all okay. At some point, I will go back into this with a little black Sharpie to try to get more precise lines in places. So it all works out in the end. And there's my black Sharpie. I'm going to add some lines on the very edges and darken things up to give it a little more oomph. It just wasn't being quite as dark as I wanted it to be. And so, as I said, I work back and forth and back and forth. So now I'm reinforcing more of that little red in there and that ember right at his very top, and trying to get this kind of there's almost a grayish color in there, but I realized that I really need to get my black. That one is very much darker black, so I needed to get some of the darker black in there. And it has a little tiny bit of a feathery feel, so I kind of was using my brush and trying to make it look a bit more feathery too. So working. The thing with alcohol inks is we have to we use the properties of the inks themselves to just kind of let all of this work for us. So I love the intensity of the colors, and I love how we can let the colors dry out a little bit. And look how much darker that is now that it's really nice and thick black. So I've got him really working on his face there and making very thin lines, because you can do that with the alcohol ink once it's really dry. I'm going to work again on his little feet and his toes here. And Dad's got a foot there too that I will do in a second, but you had to have something for the little dude to stand on. And trying to get the darkers a little dark to get that shadow working. I end up readjusting things as I go. If it looks like the shadow now needs to be darker than it was when I put the black on, maybe things need to be darker in other areas. So it is a matter of just looking back at your reference photo and seeing what's working and what's not working. When I look at the reference photo, the little kid's a lot darker than I initially had him. So I'm just going to keep on working with all of that. Now, I also paint with the Fantastic brush. This is one of the Fantastic brush pens. So I like it because I can pull stuff off, but then I can actually go back and apply more paint, and it works more like a marker than a brush. You do not have the problem with it, the paint actually running. It kind of is just like a marker. It'll just pretty much stay in place. So I'm working on his little sense of light over there near his face. And then I'm going to work on getting more feathery feel on his chest a little bit there. So that's what I'm doing. I'm adding in, and then I'm cleaning off, and then I'm adding in. So now I'm cleaning off more than adding in. I went and got a little bit of the stone washed, and now I put that in. And now I've decided I think I need a little more. Nope. Come on, realize you forgot your feet, Teri. So now, oh yeah, the dude has a couple feet in there. So I got to put his feet in so he's standing on something. And there we go. He's got some toes. He's got his feet. It's all working out. And then I have to put a shadow. The sun's shining, so there's a shadow behind him. So I'll put a shadow on this, on the top here. And then I'll use some of that shadow color to kind of enhance the shadow of down behind him. And I'm actually putting little toes in with a Sharpie. And I decided he needs more shadow there. And I need less shadow there. The Fantastics are fantastic. I love how they work. So now I'm letting it dry just for a second. And then I'm going to, whoops, no I'm not. I'm going to give a little more color to the whole thing. So here I go with more color, more color, more color. I decided he needed to stand out a little more. So again, one of the important things to do is remember this guy's got feathers and there's a direction to the feathers. So when you're doing the strokes, it's really important, especially when you're working with birds, to know what direction their feathers flow in. It makes more sense when you do that. It'll make a whole lot more sense with the in the end when the feathers are going in the correct direction. So that is something that's really important to think of, and we don't always think of that. I had a student in here yesterday, and she couldn't understand why hers was not looking at like mine, and I said, well, we're doing a bird. What directions are the feathers going in? And she goes, oh, okay. And when she changed, it all worked out. So now I flipped the painting over, and I flipped the reference over. I deliberately drew the reference on Duralar so I could do this flip over thing. And now I'm going to do the background. This is why I absolutely adore Duralar. I don't want to try to make a perfect background. I don't want to put a background in and then pull it all out. I want to just be able to do a nice loose background now when I'm finished things. So I started off with stone washed, and I just laid some very wet stone washed in. Now I'm going in with some Cool Perry, and I'm laying some of that in. And now I'm going to take a little tiny bit of moss, and I'm going to use that and lay it in. And what I'm doing is I'm deliberately going back and forth across the page. When you look at the ice, there's striations in it, so it works really well. And I'm just loosely letting this stuff just become. It's going to be what I want it to be. And so now I sprinkled a little bit of just plain alcohol on it to try to get some of the sparkle. I put a little bit, there's a little bit of green in there, and I put a little bit more of the green in there, like there's a little bit of grass or moss or something growing. And so then I'm going to sprinkle again with more alcohol. Now, there's a direction I'm deliberately sprinkling in a direct manner that is horizontal, because I want to keep it looking like there are horizontal pieces catching the light. So I'll sprinkle, and then I will gently work with it a little bit. And now I flipped it over, and there you go. So you can see now where the little guy looks a bit muddy. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to I'm going to clean off the backside of my critter. So here he is, and I'm just taking a paper towel and I'm cleaning the very inside of him. It's easier to just do this with just a slightly damp paper towel. And then when I want to get to more precise directions and get closer, I use a Fantastic. So as you can see, as I clean this out, and the black is not as important to clean as the light areas, but as I clean it all out, and every time I take a stroke, I actually clean off the stroke on the paper towel and then go back and get more. That's why you always see me, kind of going to the paper towel. And so here I'm kind of letting my couple emerge from the painting. And so I'll check it, and there, and I look at my picture, and I can see that there's a few things I'm not 100% sure of, but I put a mat around it, and then everything changed, and I really like it. So I'll make some minor adjustments. The guy's belly doesn't look right, but that's because I didn't clean it properly. See, once I clean it, it works out fine. So I have that area that I had to clean out, and I'm going to end up, I think, highlighting a little more, but basically the shadows down around in the bottom area I thought got a little too confusing, so I decided that I was going to add a little more color to the whole being, and I was going to just adjust my shadows and light down in the at the very bottom. It looked too much like the background, so I adjusted, cleaned out, put a little more yellow rather than the blue in there, and softened it a bit with another one of my this is again using the brush, using it as a brush to apply more color. I intensified the color a little bit so I could intensify it around the bottom, and working on. And so the other thing about this magic brush is you can put it on and you can pull it off. I mean, now I'm actually pulling off some of what I put on, and I'll clean it off on the side, and I'll just kind of trying to make it look like he's got soft sunlit feathers, and that there's a shadow from the little kid who's in front of him that's on him. And I love how the kid has his wings out like he's going to fly. So just the tiny final adjustments. And sometimes I don't do these tiny final adjustments, but I just needed just a little more feeling of light. I wanted the yellow to play off against the blue of the background. And so I was very happy with that. And I just wanted to ground him a little bit, put some other stuff right around. I fixed his little beak. I gave his eye a little bit more of a definition. And I realized that there was still a bit of mud on the belly of my little guy because I was missing the light. And there it goes. So thank you very much for watching.
Come learn, create, and share with us. It's a life-changing opportunity. Excite the artist with